Secure, contain, protect. The SCP Foundation has been around for over 10 years. It started in 2007 on 4chan, and from then on, it has just grown into its own crazy universe. It's got a big fandom. It's made video games. SCP containment breaches are very popular. You can play them on PC. I believe you can play them on Steam. The SCP Wiki has also been around since 2008. They basically are non-human creatures or humans with different abilities or objects that are just have weird stuff wrong with them. It's not easy to explain, to be honest. They're just very supernatural. They're not from this world, be from another planet, and completely could be from underground. Like, we do not know. That's what I feel like really makes all these SCPs very interesting, just very cool to learn about. So in this video, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going through my top 10 most interesting SCPs that I have found. In my opinion, everything is my opinion in this video. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. You can have whatever opinion you want. I went through a lot of SCPs. I read through so many, and I found a good handful of ones that I thought were worthy of me talking about them. Before we talk about that, we have to go through the 3 main levels. There are multiple, but these are the main ones that most people will understand. First, we have safe, which are not necessarily dangerous. It can be a literal glob of gelatin, and it's harmless, but it can't go out in the world because it absorbs everything it eats, and if it eats a person, it absorbs a person, you know? I'm not saying that's what it actually does. I'm just saying it could happen. Harmless to a point, can't do much damage unless tampered with. Then we have Euclid, which are unpredictable, very confusing. You don't know what they're gonna do. You have to keep your eye on them, literally. For example, the most famous SCP out there, SCP-173, he is a Euclid. The stick with him is, he's a statue, but you have to keep an eye on him. You have to maintain eye contact without even blinking. If you blink, it will move. You blink too much or you just completely turn your head away from it, it has the ability to snap your neck. Very unpredictable, really. And then we have Keter, which are world domination. They're very hostile. They would love to see the Earth or anyone really burn. They're going through all 3 of them. Top 10. Let's start with number. Let's start with SCP-002, which is called the Living Room. It is a Euclid. This SCP is basically a spherical tumor-looking object, a big ball of flesh. It has the characteristics of a small apartment. Inside, it contains, couches, rugs, a TV, sometimes a table, and a giant window, even though the window is not shown on the outside. All objects in the ball seem to have their own DNA characteristics, and they're all different. They contain like hair, nails, skin, blood. So a lot of stuff produced by the human body is the main, I guess, texture of it. Is it weird that I'm reading my notes from down here? I feel like it's gonna look really bad. If there's an issue with that, I'm sorry. I'm not good at remembering things. So we're gonna do this. A minimum of 2 personnel are required within a 20 meter of 002, or it's the whole containment area, and you must maintain physical contact with one another person at all times to confirm another human substance is there, because 002 has the power, I guess, to really mess up your head, can really fuck up the entire thing. It has been responsible for the disappearance of 7 SCP workers. Also, it had expanded its interior. So after these SCP workers were, they disappeared, the interior of 002 had changed. More stuff had grown, I guess, and it is guessed that these are the missing workers. They also ran a lot of tests with multiple animals to see if the same reaction, I guess, would happen, but at the end of multiple tests, it is shown that 002 only has an interest for human body parts, not animals. That's just how number 2 now, which is SCP-056, also known as the Beautiful Person, which is also another Euclid. Beautiful Person has multiple faces. It can be a beautiful Labrador dog, it can be a very handsome man. They take on the characteristics of things that they have seen. After seeing a Labrador dog, it changes itself into a Labrador dog. It will change into an SCP worker, like a scientist, but of a better stature, better attire, updated version of it. But when it's just by itself and there's nothing watching it or anything, it takes the effect and the overall look of a aesthetically pleasing couch. Very pretty couch. But the one time it's like put in a concrete block with just a camera in it, it had turned itself into a better version of the camera that was filmed. It is nearly impossible to view 056's original form. And then when they attempted to like use even more updated equipment to try to figure out what it is, like it basically showed nothing. No body heat, no heartbeat, no radiation. There was nothing. It was like a air. It was able to like basically shapeshift. Shapeshift! Oh god, I was trying to get that word. It's a shapeshifter. Contact with the subject basically turns any person into either very jealous of it or just the overwhelming feeling of wanting to make it happy. So sometimes they become not satisfied, but also giving a great deal of positive and negative attention, which can be predicted by personality types. Security will say that they wish to follow 056's commands, even if they dislike its current form or the command itself, while scientists will argue and verbally abuse it. And it seems like it has the ability to manipulate and change their minds whenever it wants. It'll make you think like, oh, I have to do this for this person. Something like that. It can speak multiple languages. It's very, very smart. It has an interest in magazines, fashion, sports, theoretical science, and a plethora of other subjects, usually having a greater knowledge and understanding than the person talking with them. Personnel talking will grow angry or disgusted after talking with 056 for long periods of time, even though they'd make efforts to speak with it again. 056 was questions about other SCPs. It showed fear in refusing to speak about them, and even the ones classified as safe. I believe it only likes a handful of people. I would understand that. Okay, now we're slowly getting into the very weird, confusing, like they're getting longer. Number 3, we have SCP-126. It's called the Invisible Friend. It is also a Euclid. SCP-126 is an entity that is not able to be seen, only able to be identified by noise. The sentiment, with the ability to speak multiple languages, usually in a very feminine voice, and to be able to have conversations with any subject within range. There's no possible way of finding out what it actually looks like. It has appeared to not give any radiation, heat, light, or electromagnetic energy. Despite 126's ability to be seen, it does seem to occupy areas. It is evidenced by the ability to triangulate its suggested location from its own voice. And the noise it makes is a similar noise to clucking heels, like on a hardwood floor. Weirdly enough, though, there has been no depression or indentation of any floor materials, and pressure sensors don't detect any kind of presence. But even though they are hearing the click-clacking, there's no click-clacking on the ground, walls, nothing. It's just a noise. 126 seems to enjoy conversation with any personnel about a multiple of topics like nature, art, and philosophy. They even have knowledge of current topics with a very high intelligence while showing signs of ADD, attention deficit disorder. I'm familiar with that. They change the subject many times and change languages without warning. These are very intelligent beings. Talking about its origin or nature is very difficult. It will become confused and not understand what you're trying to ask them, despite not appearing to need any physical objects of any kind. 126 will request furniture, like a bed, dresser, sundries, and most likely to stay in the room with those items present. SCP-126 was discovered in suburban-like home due to several reports of the house being haunted. It was easy to locate and detain as they only had to converse for several minutes, convincing it to enter a containment unit, which was used to transfer to a local facility. Now we're getting into we're getting a little deeper here. Some of these are a bit, you'll see. Next one is SCP-191, called the Cyborg Child. This is a safe class. I'm not gonna lie, this one's a bit sad. So, prepare yourself. SCP-191 is described as a human female child. Subject's age is currently unknown, but is described as a child, believed to have been a test subject of several experimental surgeries performed by an unknown doctor. Prepare yourself now. It gets a little graphic, but I'm reading straight from the source. I wrote down everything. So we're gonna make sure this is as thorough as possible and as specific as possible. 80% of the left face and skull have been removed. A complex transceiver system that allows to receive and transmit audio and visual input, as well as a wider spectrum of electromagnetic radiation from low-frequency radio to high-energy gamma rays. The lower jaw and teeth were removed and replaced. Esophagus has been rerouted to a feeding tube at the back of the neck, and the trachea rerouted directly to an air filter device. 191 is unable of speech, although occasionally there have been reports of it vocalizing distress through rapid respiration. In the right forearm has an input-output device, replaced the radius and ulna bones. This device contains interfaces for a variety of modern formats, as well as 7 other interfaces interacting to no known formats. The device can be accessed by pulling back the skin over the right arm like a sleeve. This is breaking my heart because this is a child. They took a human child and turned it into metal. In the brain, a 24-core processor has been implanted which translates input from all artificial components, basically allowing 191 to read and write without extra help from an external interface. Due to the implantation procedures, there is damage to the brainstem and cerebellum, which has severely damaged 191's motor skills. Lungs, heart, and major blood vessels were replaced with mechanical counterparts. It was determined that the system would allow 191's bodily systems to be restarted even after death. I couldn't think of another hell that's worse than that. The digestive system is messed up so much that regular food intake is both unnecessary and very dangerous. So waste is now disposed of a drainage system looking to the lower back that consists of a dark gray, thick, vicious slime. There are no reproductive organs, so they were replaced to provide extra space by removing non-vital components. 191 has 15 other altercations for unknown purposes. It is believed that they were performed simply to test the viability of specific procedures on other subjects. Any theories regarding the purpose of these altercations are simply speculative at best. 191 has responded well to being in containment, appearing very docile, very cooperative. When alone, the subject is known to be in a fetal position, usually for comfort, probably because it's in constant pain. Any attempts to make happy or humorous moods have been unsuccessful. However, subject shows no sign of mental distress and claims through a computer interface that it is doing all right. Get all that? I had to read that very specifically, so I read it from my notes, full on. Everything I am saying, all the stuff I wrote down, I got from the SCP Wiki. Yeah, the SCP Wiki has everything you want to know. If you're curious about it, literally anything. Alright, let's get even more confusing, shall we? This one might make cat lovers laugh. Maybe. It made me laugh. SCP-247, A Harmless Cat. Euclid. SCP-247 is essentially a Bengal tiger, which to all who observe appears to be a harmless cat with the black and orange striped fur, resembling that of a tiger. The video feed and still photos also show the illusion. Oddly enough, it is not known if the photo is affected or the one observing it is. 247's true nature has been confirmed by records of weight, displacement of water, and dental modes made from bite marks. It is not known how 247 generates this illusion. There are 2 different components to the illusion. First, an amusing effect that changes the recognized image of 247 to that of a kitten, and second, a psychic component which radiates outwards from the subject. Any living being within the field starts to get the impression that the subject is completely harmless, regardless of any prior knowledge or experience. Individuals also show extreme reluctance to harm or allow anyone to harm 247, even when being actively harmed by the subject. It has that much of an effect on your brain. This field can be with 247 or by simply avoided by striking well outside the effective range. The mimetic effect is not blocked by 247. As of now, still, no one has been able to see the subject as anything but a striped cat. When it's approached by any human, it will approve of it and will allow it to be pet and even will mew in appreciation. All that for about 7 minutes before this emboweling and devouring them. It's so weird. That one made my head hurt. But we're getting even darker, so buckle up. Okay, now we're moving on to one of my favorites, just because I love instruments, and this involves an instrument, okay? Number 6, the blood organ. Safe. The blood organ is described as a chamber organ of undetermination manufacture. It is believed to have been created sometime in the 1400s in the then Holy Roman Empire. Before the 1450s, all pipe organs created had no stop controls. It is unknown if the subject had possessed the unexplained physical effects from playing it for the length of its existence, or if an unknown event altered it in the past at some point. When played, 298 makes the blood within human subjects to slowly leave the body, while simultaneously undertaking the consistency of fibrous or very coarse matter such as cellulose. Thick. Basically. Subject has not been observed to affect the blood of subjects standing a radius of 2 meters behind the keyboard of the organ. While the effect is taking place, other surviving subjects have reported being paralyzed by a tremendous physical force. This effect only lasts while the organ is being played. The ones affected by 298 show symptoms of shock consistent with blood loss or hypertension. It has been determined that the mechanisms of the subject is purely sonic in nature. Experimentation with different active noise control has not yet been able to completely neutralize the effect of 298. The most advanced of noise control systems have reduced the effects of hypertension as well as feelings of intense pain and pressure, as reported by experimental subjects. High-fidelity recordings of the tone of SCP-298 do not replicate the effects of the subject. It appears that an additional sonic component of the SCP which has not been discovered, which provides for the physical transformation of the blood. In terms of physical properties, however, the blood affected by SCP-298 is of a completely different material. It possesses extraordinary elastic properties. None of the observed deformation of the altered blood material displayed any degree of inelasticity. These are big words! It requires an extraordinary amount of force to cause the tendrils of altered blood material to break. The greatest success in this area has been achieved by actions altering the chemical composition of the blood. You burn it. Blood affected by 298 will remain at a temperature of nearly 38 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the duration of the phenomena. Further changes to the physical properties are inconsistent and appear to be somewhat related to the specific audible tones emitted by 298. These changes are not permitted if the organ has not been played in the 47 seconds. Any altered blood returns to a liquid state. Alright. We're almost done. Don't worry. Bear with me, please. Okay, now we have SCP-644. His name is Mr. Hot. He is a Euclid. I'm gonna have a warning on this one because it is very creepy. It's a very creepy one, I'm not gonna lie. Let's just start with the beginning. 644 is to be held within a standard humanoid containment chamber. All staff or D-class known to have children are to be briefed of 644's anomalous effects. Staff with children may opt out of testing with 644 at any time. Good start, yeah? If you got kids, keep them away from this guy. 644 is a male humanoid of an Italian descent. At first glance, he appears to be approximately 30 years old. The words Mr. Hot from Little Misters by Dr. Wondertainment are tattooed on his left inner wrist. Subject is able to accurately determine whether or not a person has children. Both biological and adopted children may be sensed by this effect. 644 is aware of this fact for any person it knows of, even if just by appearance or name. 644 claims to be able to predict the material wishes of any child as well as the popularity of any product intended for children. Subject claims that this effect does not function for the wishes of adults, but has given predictions for at least one person over the age of 18, who 644 called a trooper. Hello. I have an audience. 644 is able to produce a business card from the pocket of any coat it wears. The front consists of its name, Mr. Hot, his occupation, a marketing consultant, the doctor's name and brand, I suppose, Dr. Wondertainment Incorporated LLC. Address, which I don't know if this is a real address or not, 1515 Melbury Lane, Chicago, South Africa. SCP-644 was found sleeping in an entryway of a school when it broke a window to enter. An automatic web crawler picked up a mention of 644's tattoo in the files of a local police department, and was apprehended soon after. After it stated that it broke in to escape the weather conditions, the town in which the subject was found was later found to have contained several interesting objects created by the weird doctor in the possession of several local children. When brought in for interviewing, the subject spent a lot of time talking about the scientist's kids, not really answering specific questions fully. It seems that the subject gives off a very hot or humid temperature, so all security must wear fire retardant suit anytime they're around 644. The second interview involved talking about a subject's product, but they're only for children with a very creative, imaginative mind. Product is short for what 644 calls Dr. Wondertainment's carpal critters, or virtual pet, but not on the computer, in the forearm. First you gotta hollow out the whole thing, then it's basically your friend that you can do everything with, and then give your arm bone a hug if you ever disagree. What a salesman, you know? Hey kid, you want a new pet? Cool, let me hollow your arm bone out real quick and just shove it in there. It doesn't describe what it looks like, it doesn't describe what it does. All I know is that it has a psychic power, I guess, on the kid, and just the kid basically can't think for itself. They're weird. Is the longest one we have. It is number 8. Just number 8, SCP-420. It's not what you think it is. Let me just point this out now. There are multiple 420 variations in the SCP Wiki. More than one. So this is the serious one. The other one, it's actually hilarious. This one is SCP-420, Aggressive Skin Condition. Safe. SCP-420 is a dirty bottle of whiskey with no lid. When emptied, a small amount of whiskey-like liquid, which is SCP-420-1, remains in the bottle, appearing as liquid sticking to the sides. The liquid pulls back into a few millimeters of 420-1 over time. Drinking 420-1 will cause 420-2, a non-fatal but consuming degeneration and mutation of skin and keratinous tissues. So like hair, nails, things that grow, eyelashes, like stuff like that. Cases of 420-2 should be contained for further study. Early cases can be treated. 420-2 has shown to only affect humans. The specific liquid cannot be washed out. Any liquid mixed in will turn into 420-1. When it is poured out, it will remain its properties for up to 48 hours. Chemical analysis show no anomalies in 420-1 before or after the loss of potency. It is identical to brand whiskey. When potent, it has all the same effects in addition to causing 420-2. When its potency, the chemical structure changes that of a very concentrated urine. Urinalysis, the decontaminated 420-1 shows that it is of a similar texture, smell, color of a human male approximately 50 years old with severe liver damage. 420-2 infection process varies somewhat from patient to patient, but it can be described 6 phases. Before I go through these 6 phases, alright? Queasy warning. Warning for probably anything. If you're eating, drinking, anything right now, put it down or finish it and then come back, because let me tell you something. It gets really grody from here. I'm going to give you this warning now before someone gets mad, but these 6 phases, I'm going to do everything I can to keep it short. They're not long, but they're very, very specific. Phase 1, 12 hours after consuming. The mouth will begin to immediately become dry and swollen, leading to slurred speech. Note that this slurred speech is not the same as being drunk. It includes speech patterns similar to intoxication. Compared to SCP-420-2, within 24 hours of consuming, the drinker's toe fingernails become extremely brittle, cracking in the fingers and bleeding. The growth is at the same time accelerated. Infection of these ingrown nails and open sores is identical to uninfected subjects. The infected's hair shows similar characteristics. Moving on to phase 2. This is 1 to 2 weeks after. The infected skin becomes brittle and dry, cracking and molting off. Nails and hair growth is also accelerated, replacing lost tissue and growing more in heavy, thick molds. Genetic analysis of collagen fibers show mutations similar to skin cancer. Innervations of the site is fully functional. Growth of the skin folds inside the infectant's mouth prevents communication, although growth progresses such that the infectant can still breathe and eat on its own. Infectees show a complete disregard for what they eat. Infectees die due to malnutrition, infection of open wounds, or alcohol poisoning from overconsumption of 420-1 in this or earlier phases. It's getting worse. It's gonna get worse from here. Phase 3, 3 to 6 weeks. The infectant loses innervation of the skin and other keratinous surfaces. Nerves in the skin layer grow uncontrollably, but no longer send signals back to the central nervous system. Genetic analysis of skin samples from this time show mutation so severe that it no longer resembles human. That's gross. We're only on phase 3 too. There are 6 of these. So, individual samples suggest the mutations are random. Analysis of samples from different infectees show a consistent mutation path leading to a final genotype with relatively little variation. In other words, the skin of the infectee is different organism entirely. Now we're at phase 4. This is 3 to 7 days after phase 3. The skin begins to twitch and writhe on its own, apparently random patterns. Differentiated tumors develop into whole surfaces of other tissues. Throats begin to form, leading from the outside of the skin to the circulation of the host, but are mainly non-functional at this point. The host's mouth still does most of the eating, although the host doesn't seem to be eating now. The mouth itself is instead working on its own. CAT scans of the host's brain activity shows panic and fear, as the only dominant thoughts and motor groups in the jaw muscle area are not recruited. Rather, chewing and swallowing are forced by the motions of the mutated skin. It has gained a mind of its own. It's doing everything its own. The body itself, the human itself, can't do anything about it. Phase 5, 1 to 2 days after Phase 4. Phase 4 and 5 may overlap significantly, with different portions of the skin entering Phase 5 faster than others. The twitching/writhing skin activity give away to organized motion. The skin can now be considered a separate organism from the host. It moves the body like a puppet and exhibits extreme rudimentary intelligence. It is a scavenger organism and an opportunistic predator. The skin digests food by excreting a clear enzymosis fluid onto proposed food, leaving it to digest, then folding the food into itself. Ingested food is taken into the folds lined with thick, heavy hair and keratinous plates leading down to the throat. Grinding net of keratinous plates breaks down food, which is then filtered and absorbed into the host's blood. Activity scans of the brain show many hosts at this stage have gone insane. Some, however, seem relatively calm and are processing input from eyes and ears normally. Is that clear enough for you? Hope so. We're on to Phase 6 now. Last phase. Most of the infectant remains at Phase 5 indefinitely. The trigger which causes a shift into phase 6 is unknown. The skin begins to rapidly grow hair and keratinous teeth, increasing in mass. Infected patients who appear to be entering phase 6 should be destroyed immediately by total incineration. You gotta burn it. 420-2 can be treated in phase 1 by aggressive radiation and chemotherapy. This treatment has a 73% success rate for removal of 420-2 and a 21 fatality. If all this treatment, radiation, chemo, all of it happens and it still does nothing, you're going to probably end up in phase 6 and you're going to have to be destroyed. We have reached number 9, SCP-352. It's a keter. It's the only keter I have on this list. Alright? You might recognize the name. His name is Baba Yaga. So it's a witch. It appears as a very old, bony woman of an indeterminate age and race. Subject speaks Old Russian, but with an accent and dialect that makes translation very difficult. 352 is extremely unwilling to communicate, with most of the conversation made so far primarily of threats or statements of revenge. 352 has never identified herself by name due to her aggressive nature, but it has been impossible to determine any background information. 352 possesses a level of strength and speed much higher than what should be possible for a person of her perceived age and physical dimensions, and has been shown moving loads in excess of 200 kilograms with little physical strain and moving at speeds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour or 45 miles an hour. Can recover from wounds that would be lethal to a human, including decapitation and disemboweling. This regeneration can take between several days to several weeks. Internally, 352 appears to be a normal human woman with muscle, bone, and organs in a state of consistent with advanced age. 352 is capable of growing very thin hair-like strands from any part of her body, apparently at will. These strands can grow several meters in an hour and appear to be at least partially under her control. They have been observed crawling on the floors and up walls and other structures. These hairs are clear and nearly invisible to the naked eye and appear to be slightly weaker than standard human hair. The strands are also coated in a thin layer of chemical enzyme identical to the enzyme in saliva of 352. The enzyme reacts on contact with human tissue and rapidly attacks the nervous system? Nervous system! Ha! Symptoms manifest almost immediately and includes hallucinations, euphoria, suppression of cognitive or logical thinking, and suppression of pain receptors. The state persists for several days, mild exposure, and can become permanent. 352 was recovered in southern Russia. Reports of an enchanted forest and a witch who had caused several deaths were initially ignored, until reports of the witch being found and captured began to surface. When Foundation agents responded, the town was found deserted. Several bodies were found in varying states of decomposition, and blood trails appeared to show many more bodies being dragged into the enchanted forest. Recovery teams were dispatched to capture 352 but suffered heavy casualties. Due to 352's attack and exposure to the enzyme, a large amount of hair was recovered as well and is believed to be the cause of many exposure incidents, with contact being attributed to spider webs or an agent's own hair and not reported until hallucination manifested. Sorry for me being bad at reading. These words are hard. We're finally on to the last one. We are on number 10. I know more about this one than majority of any of them. I don't even know what word to use for this one, but bear with me. SCP-205. Shadow lamps. Euclid. SCP-205 is a pair of flood lamps used in photography. The light emitted by each lamp behaves in a manner unique to 205 and passes through any surface that is not colored white. Once the light contacts a white surface, it scatters and reflects as normal and loses any unnatural properties. If the light continues uninterrupted through any matter, otherwise casting no shadow, each lamp will display an unidentified young woman's shadow upon any flat white surface. The SCP-205 pair will go through a 6-month cycle that ends on April 30th, and October 31st. 205 will shut off at midnight at the end of each cycle. Any persons entering or already inside Chamber 52 when the lamps are both turned off are violently assaulted by forces unseen in a manner consistent with the fate suffered by the Shadow Woman, regardless of any light source in the room. If the lamps are shut off at the end of a standard 6-month cycle, they can be remotely activated to immediately end the danger and begin a new cycle. If the lamps cease operation for any other reason, Chamber 52 will remain sealed for at least 30 days, regardless of the status of 205 itself. Month 1. A still image of a woman in a provocative pose. No change of clothes or characteristics in any part of the cycle. During the last week of the first month, the shadow will begin to move slightly as if the individual is shifting her weight or becoming uncomfortable. By the end of the first calendar month, the shadow will break her pose and spend the next 8 hours moving through a series of poses that imply a photography session, complete with clothing changes and short breaks. In April and October, shadows distinct from the young woman are displayed. These shadows have exaggerated nude male physiques and horns projecting from the cranium, although no penis, is ever observed, even during the sexual displays that take up the final days of the cycle. After the second week of the month, the woman will take the photographs of one or more of the horned shadows during one of their outings, always with the non-digital camera that has been consistent through all observed viewings of 205 cycle. During the end of the final week, the woman will develop the film in her camera for the first time since photographing the horned shadows. Her reaction to the photography of one of shock and horror, and her movements afterwards suggest that she attempts to flee and seek shelter behind a locked door, presumably in her house. There she is encountered by multiple instances of the horned shadow figures, which assault her repeatedly. For the remainder of the week, it is strongly implied that she is killed during this process, although the assaults will continue through many different slides. On the last day of the cycle, one of the horned shadows begin to grow larger in a manner suggested that the figure is approaching 205. You know, like how in a shadow, if you get closer to the light source, it gets bigger because you're covering the light. It will eventually overcast all other shadows, and at this time, both lamps will be physically turned off, regardless of any modifications to prevent a halt in operation. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Those were all the SCPs I found the most interesting. I need to get used to doing lists like this and not having my notebook out the entire time. I only had this out mainly because a lot of these were overly specific that I know I would not be able to use the right wordings and all that to make it understandable. So I hope this is okay. If you have issues with me using my notebook, I am sorry. Give me tips on how I can do better or something, because I already have issues remembering things. But this is my first video to YouTube. I am new to the YouTube community. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything like that, let me know. Be nice about it. If you're a dick, I won't respond to you. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you for being creepy with me, and I hopefully will see you in my next video. Goodbye.